have signed long-term contracts. The 35-year contract was the last one that was signed back in 2002. Obviously, you guys signed it in 2006. It was 31 years left on that contract, and that's how we when we go out and purchase power plants. I'll touch on a few of the ones that we've purchased, and we do that with debt. And that's how we were able to go issue debt, is because we've got long-term contracts with our members. Just like people do a loan on your house, we basically do the same type of kind of financing for our power plants as well. So we had the contract last one was in 2002, so it goes until 2037. It's something we still want to keep a fair number of years on those contracts, so that if we do have opportunities to get into a cost-effective resource, we can go out and issue some 30-year debt or whatever is cost-effective. I kind of want to talk about a little bit of our power supply, just to kind of give you a flavor of what we do. That's a big part of what we do. It's 95% of our total costs is power supply. We have a very diverse portfolio. And it's important to keep a diverse portfolio. I mean, I don't know. I mean, no one predicted natural gas prices to come down like they did. No one predicted natural gas prices to spike like they did back in 2008. No one expected the coal shortages last winter. So no one. So our strategy is just like any stock portfolio, is keep a very diverse portfolio, like any other industrial utilities does. We have a number of contracts that are long-term contracts. We've got short-term contracts as well, and I'll touch on those as well. This is a kind of a summary of our resources we use to serve our load. Boswell is a coal plant in northern Minnesota. That's the first plant we purchased back in 1989 with 35-year debt. That plant is going to be, the initial cost of that plant will be paid for in a few years. And so our costs will start declining as we get these plants paid for. Elm Road is a coal plant that we jointly purchased or built with Wisconsin Electric, just south of Milwaukee. It's a 1,000 megawatt new state-of-the-art. Probably it's the most cleanest, probably most efficient coal plant in the country today. We own about 8.3% of each 2 units for a total of 106 megawatts. We own, with Wisconsin Power Alliant, we each own 50% of a site near Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. So we each own 2 peaking units from there that we built and owned since 1993 and 96. Again, that will be paid off in a few years. Island Street was a peaking plant we built in 2004 in Kaukauna. Again, a very large scale, very efficient peaking plant that is, we operate and sell into the MISO market on a very regular basis, because it's a very efficient, quick starting, low cost peaking unit. We own, one of our first wind projects was in Worthington Wind, which is out in western part of Minnesota, just to start to get a sense of what wind was going to be. We did that 10, 12 years ago. We also have a number of other wind projects, and so the columns on the right are the purchases that we've entered into over the years. The ones on the left were the ownership units. We have about 40% of our resources is from owned resources, about 60% from purchases, where most of the investor-owned utilities will want to do 100% because they make more money, they can then get a return on what they own. We don't have that interest. We're just trying to figure out what is the least cost way of serving load. So we have a number of purchases as well, various short, long, and medium-term purchases. We did a deal, a nuclear plant in Wisconsin called Point Beach was doing an uprate. They were replacing their turbines with more efficient turbines, and so they were getting about 15% more output from that plant. No other utility in Wisconsin was able to buy the output, but we had some contracts that were ending at that time. So we did, in 2011, we were able to buy 164 megawatts out of the Point Beach nuclear plant at a very attractive price, and it's carbon-free, emission-free, so it's going to be a good long-term resource for us until those units. We got it through the length of the remaining term of the license, which is 2030 on one unit and 2033 on the other unit. We also purchasing the output from a combined cycle unit down in northern Illinois called Kendall. That contract's ending in 17, and so we were able to get another resource down in northern Illinois because we have the transmission rights and some contract rights. And I'll talk a little bit about that. We have we've been ramping up and trying to get some cost-effective renewable resources over the years. We've got we're buying out of two large wind turbines, wind farms here in Iowa, north central Iowa. Barton is one's called, and the other one's called Top of Iowa. So we get about 80 megawatts of wind from those two units, and we've got a couple of wind projects in Wisconsin for another 80 megawatts. Several biogas, a few biogas projects, a couple hydro projects, some a solar project that we did a 1 megawatt solar project and purchasing the output from. And then we have a few contracts with the investor-owned utilities. The Wisconsin Electric, which is the largest utility in Wisconsin, we were purchasing 80. That's declining to 50 megawatts, and we've got a Wisconsin Public Service, which is a utility up in Green Bay, near Green Bay. We're purchasing 130, and then 125 megawatts from Alliant. And all of those are, in the Alliant contract and the WEPCO contract are going to be significantly declining over the next few years, just because there's more cost-effective options for us. So again, it gives you a sense, again, our diverse portfolio, and so where does that leave us in terms of, we're getting about 13% of our energy from renewable energy, about 23% from nuclear. That results in, we've reduced our CO2 emissions about 23-25% since 2005. And if you're reading a lot of articles on the EPA and all the regulations that they're looking to do on the Clean Power Plan, on future they're trying to regulate CO2 out of existing power plants. They've been talking about getting utilities to decrease their emissions about 23%, 25% from 2005. So we're right in what the EPA is saying. They want the utilities to do it. Unfortunately, what they're saying publicly and what the actual rule says is a little bit different. And so the rule actually, even though they're saying publicly 23% reduction from 2005, it's actually looking at 2012 as the base year. So that's definitely an issue and a comment that all of the utilities are dealing with. And so we've got some work to do, but I think bottom line is because our fleet is fairly, we've got a newer fleet, a lower carbon emitting fleet than most of the other utilities in the region. So we should be able to meet that requirement more cost effectively than any of the other utilities. I put this slide in here just because I think it's an important feature on how we work by working together as with all of our owners. We're able to do things that you couldn't do individually. Nelson is a combined cycle unit down in northern Illinois. If we're in the Midwest, Mid-Continent Independent System Operator system called MISO. This one's in PJM, which is it has Chicago and northern Illinois, and then it mostly has the utilities out in Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey area. But the utilities in that region have a hard time selling long term because of the way they structured their market. It's hard. It's very difficult for generators to sell long term. But because we're able to bring that power into MISO, we're able to buy it long term. And so we were able to actually get a very attractive contract in place for 20 years. We had the transmission rights in place because the Kendall contract was ending, and so we were able to bring that into using our existing transmission path. And so it's basically at a peaker price, locked in, fixed for 20 years with no escalation. So I mean, again, it shows that what you can do by working together. And this is a 90 megawatt purchase. By comparison, I think Independence load is about 15 megawatts of load. So it'd be very difficult to do this as Independence, but if you get a lot of utilities together, you can do these types of deals. Another feature of our power supply is we want to be in the market a little bit all the time. I don't know when the market is going to be high and when it's going to be low. So we have the ability as you can see on the chart on the left, is, you know, we have some contracts that have flexibility, and we can decrease those purchases or not renew them, and so we can, you know, have some exposure to the market. In 2017, about 80 megawatts of exposure. Again, you know, less than 10% of our total load, and that's kind of what we're targeting for. We're trying to target that 10% maybe of our load we can replace with short-term purchases every year. And we also have the ability to bring in some longer-term contracts as well, because we have some other contracts that are ending in 2020, 2021. So it gives us some flexibility. But we also have, because of we've negotiated over the years, as we've had leverage, we also have the ability to increase those purchases. So the chart on the right is, if we actually did increase all of our purchase rights that we don't have to, it's our option. We can basically fill most of our, our base and most of our energy requirements going forward. We do have some peaking requirements starting in 2019, 130 megawatts, but those are, I think we can manage. We can put our own peakers in. We can manage that very easily. So it gives us the ability to access the market if we want, but we also have the backstop to be able to use those purchases flexibility that we have as well. Some other, another big, I'm in charge of the power supply group, so obviously I'm happy to answer any questions and you might have. I know that stuff a lot better. We also have two